Hello there, Joe Brady here, and I've got an interesting demo for you today. This is something different than I've been doing for a while. It's an image composite. The story was I was in Scituate, Massachusetts, where there's a lovely lighthouse, one of my favorites to photograph, but it was kind of a stormy day. Actually, the storm had just passed, and there were some dramatic skies, but the light wasn't great. As I was driving around, I came across this really interesting beach scene that had real dramatic skies and a real dramatic ocean. However, there was no subject. It needed a subject. So as I drove around the corner, there is Scituate Lighthouse. So I started thinking about, gee, what if I composited these two? I'll take the lighthouse and I'm going to put it out in the ocean, in the stormy ocean, and see what we can create with that. So that's what we're going to do. We'll start in Lightroom, take it into Photoshop for the composite, and then bring it back into Lightroom for its final touches. Let's get started.
Well, hello there, everyone, and welcome. This is Joe Brady, and we're going to do something different today. I'm going to do a composite. I had a couple of images that by themselves weren't particularly interesting, but actually as I was taking them, I was kind of thinking this might be interesting to combine. And we're going to start with this scene. This is just a lone seagull flying over the ocean right off of it's Scituate, Massachusetts, which is just a little north of Cape Cod. And a stormy day, although it had finished raining for the week. And I saw some potential here, particularly the sky. The clouds have such an interesting feel to them. And kind of with the stormy ocean and everything, it really looked like it had some potential as a background. So we're going to start in the develop module. Since it's going to be a composite, we're going to have to take things into Photoshop to finish off. But let's first just do one thing that's a must, and that's straighten this thing. So if we go up to the cropping tool up here in Lightroom, we have the angle tool, and let's just click on one end and drag it across the horizon of the ocean, and that will automatically straighten that out, and we hit done. So now we have a straight horizon, so now we can relax and work from there. So I don't think the edit on this part is going to be too extreme. Mostly what it needs is some really structure to the whole image. So let's add a bunch of clarity. Well, that brings things up. And we'll add clarity. And we're going to add some dehaze because, yeah, maybe a lot of dehaze. I really want to start to bring up the clouds. And as we do this, we can see some spots starting to appear. So we'll want to get rid of those. Let's bring down the highlights, and I think the shadows are okay. I'm going to bring up the shadows a little bit. Let's add some more contrast to the scene. Yeah, that's starting to look a lot better. In fact, we may, before we're done, want to go a little more dramatic than this. Let's add some vibrance and saturation to the scene too. Let's bring out those colors. It's kind of got that blue stormy feel of the distant clouds. So that's looking a lot more interesting, and as I mentioned, we've brought up some spots that were hiding. So let's go to the spot removal tool, or Q and A. Q for the tool, A to show the circles of the spots. You can barely see them here. Let's come down to the bottom here and bring up the visualized spots a little more. And then we know anywhere we see those almost perfect circles, that is a spot. So let's make our spot removal tool a little bit bigger than the spot, just a little bit. Don't want to take any more we need to. Click on that one and that one. Now this thing right next to it, I'm not sure. Let's take a look. We'll toggle on and off. Still not, yeah, it's a cloud. Okay, we're good. So we got rid of what seems to be the only two spots. If any others show up as we're working, we can certainly fix them later. So let's hit done on that. All right, we got rid of our spots. We might want to darken things up a little bit locally. I don't want the viewer, as they're looking at this scene, to go up here. This is just too light. So let's come up to the top here. I'm going to do a graduated filter down from here. I'm going to bring the highlights down some more. And since we've got something that's white, I need to bring the whites down. Let's bring the whites down, and that still might be enough. We might end up going into a different software to get rid of that. Or we might end up cropping some of the top off. Foreground, we probably have a little bit more than we need, but again, let's leave it there. So what are we going to put in this scene? Well, this is right down the street from Scituate Lighthouse, which happens to be this thing right here. And this was actually shot just a little bit before the beach scene. I've got two frames here, basically the same. I'm just checking to see the differences. Well, in this one we have somebody hiding around the corner. And this one, you know what? They're kind of gone. We're still going to have to cut them out. But I think I like the flag flapping in the wind a little bit better in this one. It's a minor thing. But what I'm going to do is apply the same edits that we just did to the beach scene. I'll do it to both of these lighthouses. Let's click on sync so that they're going to have all of the same effects applied, and let's see what it does to them. And yeah, that's got the right feel to it. However, it is a little too dark. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring the exposure back up. And I think I'm going to want to have the lighthouse itself a little brighter. So let's bring up the highlights. Actually, we're going to, you know what, we're going to cut this out. So we'll just leave it that way. So we've got our beach scene and we have our lighthouse. Now let's take the two of these and bring them into Photoshop. So we're going to go up to Photo, Edit In, and we're not going to choose Photoshop. We're going to choose Open as Layers in Photoshop so that they're both in the same file. So let's go ahead and do that. You know, I decided to step back. I'm looking at this ocean scene, and I think I wanted it even a little bit more dramatic. So I'm going to add some more contrast to it. I'm going to bring the exposure down a little bit. Yeah, I think I want that little bit of a darker feel. I'm even going to bring up the dehaze a bit more. Yeah, I think that's a little bit more what I was after. So let's go ahead and we'll send those two into Photoshop. In, again, the same thing, Photo, Edit In, Open as Layers in Photoshop. All right, so here we are in Photoshop. We've got the lighthouse underneath. We've got the ocean over top of it. So I'm going to put the lighthouse on top just so we can see it a little better. So we get the lighthouse on top, and then underneath that is the ocean. So what do we need to do? Well, first thing we need to do is we need to extract the lighthouse out of this image. How can we do this? Can we do it with the magic wand? I don't know. Let's find out. So I've got the magic wand. I'm going to start with contiguous, which means it won't get in the in between the lighthouse railings here. I really want to get the sky around it, and that setting was a little too high because it picked up the sky. So let's bring down the tolerance here. Let's bring it down to 20 and see if that will do a better job. So that's set at 20. I'm going to Command or Control D to deselect, and let's select up in the sky, and still picking up the lighthouse. That's all right. I think we can work around that. Notice that since contiguous is set, when I click out here, even the little piece of line over here is causing it to stop. Let's come in and get these clouds here and here and here. That last one was too much, so we're going to leave that alone. So now let's add and subtract with the lasso tool. So let's hold down the Shift key with the lasso tool to add, and we'll get rid of that. And there's some other spots around, so let's get rid of those. We're not going to end up needing them in the end anyway. All right, now let's zoom in a bit. And let's get the lasso tool again. And let's turn the lasso to a straight line lasso tool. Let's go ahead and add this part of the ocean here. All right, so we go back to 0. All right, so now we have a nice selection of the lighthouse itself. Yeah, we're picking up the buildings, so we're going to have to get rid of those. And again, we're going to add them. So again, let's zoom in. Get our lasso, straight line lasso tool. So I hold down the Shift key to get add, and I'm just going to follow the lighthouse down. I doubt we're going to use the whole lighthouse on the building, but that's okay. We'll just pick this to add to the scene. All right, now I need to subtract the pieces of the lighthouse. So now we're going to hold down the Alt key, and we're going to click down along the lighthouse. Keep following this edge. It is pretty straight, so that makes it fairly easy to follow along here. And all right, we got that back in. Let's just do a little cleanup on this side. Again, we'll fine-tune this when we get to our compositing. and click and double click to finish it. Okay, so let's hit O. So now we have a pretty good selection of our lighthouse. Yeah, it'll take some cleaning up. But again, what we want is everything but this. So to do that, it's Command-Shift-I, which is also the same as select inverse. We want everything that's not selected to be selected. So Command-Shift-I, now we have the lighthouse, and we have all the rocks and stuff in the beginning, in the foreground. We can get the lasso tool again, and I'm just going to switch it to a regular lasso tool. Hold down the Alt key, and we're just going to minus out this entire base because we don't need that coming in. All right, and technically, you know what? We don't need this line. Let's get this line out of here because that's not going to look right in our composite. Okay, we've got everything else. We've got the lighthouse. All right, so let's copy, Command-C, and then we're going to hide the lighthouse and then deselect all this stuff and then hit Command-V to bring our lighthouse in, and there it is. Now it's slightly tilty and it's slightly the wrong size. So let's hit Command-T, which is transform. So we're going to grab a corner and we're going to make it smaller because we're going to have this thing just offshore out in the waves. I think something about maybe that big. Now the question is, gee, maybe we do want this thing somewhat tilted over. That could be kind of cool. What happens if we do that? Let's make it intentionally tilted, like it's, really stuck out in the ocean. Or do we want it straight up and down? Not sure yet. We'll decide that later. So, but that size is about what I was after. Let's go ahead and do that. And we can hit the crop tool to get rid of all this stuff on the bottom that was left over from our vertical shot of the lighthouse. So we'll hit enter on that. Okay. Now we're starting to have something that looks like it's going to be an interesting subject. So let's go ahead and clear out these pieces in here. Let's get the magic wand. All right, so I'm going to bring my point sample down, my average, to 3 by 3. Let's see, let's keep contiguous turned on. Let's see what happens when we click in the glass here. And you can see we're getting just the glass panes. That's good. And we'll do that for each of these. Let's see what happens if we turn off contiguous and come in here. Let's see how accurate it will be. Yeah, I was worried about that. It was going to pick up the whole thing, but it actually did a good job on the top. We just need to deselect the stuff that we don't want selected. So let's go ahead and bring this back up, get the lasso tool, hold in the minus, and we basically want everything that it's picked up down below deselected. We've also got this little bit in here. Let's see what happens. And rather than delete it, what I'm going to do is to create a mask with it. So we've got our layer with just our lighthouse here. Let's click on the mask icon, and it actually gives us everything we didn't want. So this time we're going to hit Command-I or Control-I to invert. And there we go. Now we can see through. Now it missed a little piece in here of this line for the flagpole. So let's go back to our lighthouse. Let's select this. And we'll click on the mask, hit X, and Option Delete to fill that with the gray as well. And there we go. All right. So it's starting to look kind of cool. There's our lighthouse sitting off. We're going to do some stuff to soften the edges a bit. Oh, there's a little bit showing right here. I just saw that. So let's go ahead and... Actually, we don't need to... We can deselect. We can do this manually. Let's just click on the mask, get a brush, and we'll make the brush small. And we're just going to paint with black. Let's set it for 0. We want 100%. Let's just set it for black. And any little spots that we got, we can clean up the edges a little bit. And we'll come back in and do this a little better after we've finished the rest of our image. There's some glass that got missed in here. And some up in here. As we zoom in, you can see there's a little bit that's missing there. So let's get a brush. And I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. And I'm going to click right on this edge and come all the way down to here and click again, and you can see it just draws a straight line in between the two. And since we're working on the mask layer of just the lighthouse, that all disappears. And we're not going to use this piece anyway. Yeah, we're definitely going to get rid of the rocks. We've got the same thing going on this edge. So let's come on here. We'll come up to about there. We'll even take away a little bit of the edge. That'll really make it clean. And up to here. And we missed a spot. All right, that's looking better. Again, we might have some cleanup to do later. Let's see the whole image. So that's looking pretty good. Now we can still see through this window. We'll deal with that a little bit later. Let's finish this lighthouse and get this lighthouse in. I'm going to back off on the zoom. I just want to look at the composition. I think I want the lighthouse a little bit smaller. So let's again hit Command T on that. And let's make it a little bit smaller. I think I want to have it a little deeper in the water. I think I want to have it off to one side a little bit more as well. And again, the question comes down, do I want to have this tilted a little more like that? Or do I want it now? You know what? I think I do want it. I think I just want to put it straight up and down. So let's go ahead and make the thing straight. So we've got that straight up and down. Now I need to have it really look like it's in the ocean. So let's zoom in on the base here. And we're going to just work on the mask that we created. Because as we paint black on that, we will see the ocean underneath. So let's get our brush, and I'm going to make the hardness about 30%. And a little bit smaller, and we're going to start letting, you know what? I need less. I need the hardness at 0. I want to have a little bit of a feather in here. Yeah, because we want the water a little bit transparent as it kind of bounces up against the side of the lighthouse. Same thing over here, maybe a little less here. Maybe we'll make it a little bit harder on this edge as the water kind of comes around. In fact, let's follow this kind of wave right here so that it makes sense that it's flowing around the front of the lighthouse. Yeah, that's looking pretty cool. And now we've got the wave in the back kind of coming around as well. Yeah, let it look like it's actually kind of just starting to crawl around the corner. I think I want to take some of this back, so I'm going to hold down the X key, or push the X key to make it white, make it a little smaller, and this will allow me to bring it back. And I'm going to bring it back at 90%, just so we can sort of see the water flowing there. Yeah, because we've got the facet of the lighthouse here, and it would create a little bit of a sharper edge here. And let's hit X again. I'm going to work at 80%, and no, not 80%. I'm going to work at 40%, and just let some of that water come through. And as I do that, I'm going to keep coming down, 20, 10, just so we can see the water just starting to come through, come around, but you can still see the texture of the lighthouse behind it. And yeah, there we go. That's looking pretty cool. So as we're doing this, I'm seeing, we got a spot again. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Also, keep in mind that this is on the base layer. I'm going to take the base layer and I'm going to duplicate it, Command J, just so we have a pristine version underneath so that I can do my edits here. See, we've got a spot again, so let's get rid of that one. So let's Shift F5 to bring up content aware. Fill, that's gone. And now let's use a tool to bring the seagull closer to the lighthouse. It's kind of too far away. And that's this tool right here, which is Content Aware Move. You've probably seen Content Aware Fill, which we just used. But Content Aware Move is a little bit more of an esoteric movement. And I'm going to take the seagull and put it about right there. And I'm going to rotate it up a little bit, so like it's flying to the lighthouse, and then hit Enter. And what this tool does is it takes the one that you were working on and moves it, and then it fills in where you took it from. Now what we're going to have to do is clean up the background around it a little bit. So as we come in here, we see it pick a little bit too much of the background. Again, don't worry, it's 300%. So what I'm going to do is, again, get a mask, get a brush, and I'm going to just paint around at about 80%, just around the seagull so that it blends in with the background that it is now on. And we've got a little fringing going on there. Again, this is looking at an image at 300% beyond the actual resolution of the piece, so we can cut it a little slack. And again, we're kind of going for sort of a supernatural kind of composite here. And we've got a little, let's get rid of that fringing that happened on the edge of the seagull. And again, it's just kind of an element. All right, even again, we look at it at 100%. Yes, the whole scene is grainy, but that's kind of part of the charm of it. All right, so there we have our gull closer. And I think we just need to simplify the scene a bit, and we'll probably best do that in Lightroom, and along with a little bit of light painting. So let's take this entire thing back into Lightroom. Actually, we're not going to need the layer with just the lighthouse on it anymore. Let's just get rid of that, and let's just hit save to bring this back into Lightroom. So as I looked at that, I decided I wanted a little more flow, a little more transparency of the water where it was wrapping around the lighthouse. So let's just go ahead and do that with the brush. And I'll play with the percentage a little bit and even go down to 20% opacity with the brush on the mask so that we can see most of the lighthouse behind. Okay, so here we are back in Lightroom. Here's the original scene, the original ocean that we used, the original lighthouse we used after the edit. And here's our composite that we just brought in from Photoshop. And it needs a little bit of light painting to finish it off and a little cropping. There's too much of the base here. This is just too powerful a base. We do want to have a base. It's important to have this sort of pedestal to support the rest of the image, but it is just too strong and too dark. So let's cut that down a little bit. And I'm going to cut down on the top a little bit as well. And again, that does put the sea perilously close to dead center. However, when you've got an object that is connecting the base and the sky, something like this, it could be a tree, a lighthouse, you can get away with that. It's like it's connecting the two things. Also, it looks like my horizon's a little bit off. Let's go ahead and adjust that with the crop tool. And you know what? I think there's actually maybe some distortion from the lens that's causing a little bit of a curve. I think that could be what we're seeing. But this is such a weird scene. If things are a little bit uncomfortable, that's okay. I like what's going on here with the seagull flying in. I like the ocean around the lighthouse. This area up here is a little too colorful. So let's go ahead and get a graduated filter. I want to darken it and take the saturation out of it. So let's take the saturation out. Let's bring the exposure down. Yeah, that looks better. I like that a lot. Okay, so how can we finish this off? Yes, it needs a vignette. Let's go ahead and throw that in just so we can see. I'll put the full vignette in. I'm going to make it less round. I'm going to bring it in a little more, feather it a little more, and then we'll back off to more than usual probably though. I think we'll do, I want to see the darkness. Do about 24 on that. Now let's counter that. We want to have the eyes go right to the lighthouse itself. So let's get a brush. And I'm going to turn auto mask on at first. Let's hit O for our overlay. And so we can see what we're getting. And yeah, that's doing a nice job. It's picking up a little of the background. That's okay because I'm going to make this bigger. And I actually want to draw a line right down to the shore. In fact, I'm going to turn off the overlay so that we get this entire thing here. And I want to get the water around it as well. And now as I look at it, I think I'm going to take it away from the sky. So you hold down the Alt key. We still got auto mask on. All right, so now let's see what that looks like. Hit the O to toggle that off. And let's bring up the exposure a bit. Yeah, that's better. Kind of almost want to have it, I want to say almost glowing in what's going on here. Again, it's a supernatural scene. And yeah, that's looking a lot better. So that's kind of cool. Now, cropping wise, is there too much on the right? Maybe. Let's take a look at that. Let's bring up the crop tool, R. I like the motion. I like the dark sky over here. We could bring this in from the left maybe a little. And you know what? To further the flow of the ocean, yeah, there we go. With our golden ratio right on the lighthouse, I think I like that better. As I look at it, do I want a little bit more foreground? Perhaps. Let's just take a little more. And maybe a little more on the top. And I think that's looking good. So let's take a look at that full screen. Yeah, and it's kind of a cool image. We've got the lighthouse just slightly askew, as would be expected if the thing all of a sudden is surrounded by the ocean. Our seagull now coming up nice and close. It's just kind of a cool feeling. We could go ahead in and darken this area. In fact, let's do that. Let's zoom in. Let's go back to our 300%. Just get this one window. I just want to darken these panes a little bit. So let's get our brush, and we're going to turn on auto mask, and let's see if that does a better job. Yeah, actually it does do a pretty good job, because all we want to do is darken this. So if it picks up some of the back window separators, mullions, whatever they're called, that's okay. Let's just get these selected. All right, we'll hit O, and let's just bring the highlights down on that. And I'm just going to darken it enough so it kind of matches the tone over there. Even a little bit more. Yeah, I think something about like that's good. So let's hit done on that. And yeah, now it fits. That's better. All right, so kind of a cool image. Do I want some more color in it? Would it look better almost colorized? Let's find out. Let's bring up the saturation a lot and see what happens. Ooh, I think I do. Yes, I love it. I love the color with a lot of color in it. I love how it brings out the blue in the sky there. Yeah, that was what it needed. Very cool. All right. So yeah, with that super saturation, it's picking up the color with the stones on the beach, and it's got that kind of bluish gray that happens with storms over the ocean. So we started out with this. We started out with this as our background palette, this stormy ocean. And again, it was dark. I exposed it to the right. Let's take a look at the histogram. You can see it's exposed to the right. I still didn't clip any of the whites, but obviously it was a much darker scene than we're seeing here on the raw file. But again, you can always darken something that's light. And then we took this one particular shot of Scituate light. We had already brought down the exposure and things on here. Brought it into Photoshop and ended up with this as our composite. Brought it back into Lightroom to give ourselves a nice vignette and bring up that saturation to really bring the color out in the sky. And then we ended up with this, which actually, the more I look at it, that's pretty cool. I think I might even have to print this one. So that was a lot of fun. Yes, the sky is grainy. The sky was grainy. There are tools to get rid of that if it bothers you. But for me, actually, I think it adds to the image. So that was a composite in Photoshop, something really different, just something kind of having some fun with it. There's more we could have done. I could have taken more time on it, but I wanted to show you the concept of it. And it's all about seeing elements that might go together to create kind of a cool story, even if it's just a supernatural one. So that was fun. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you online again soon. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Well, that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed what happens when we brought it back into Lightroom and I increased the saturation and added that vignette. It completely transformed the image and added a lot more impact and interest to it. Hope you enjoyed that. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I hope to see you online again soon. Thanks for watching, and be well. Bye-bye.